Welcome to another episode of Soapbox Theology. I'm Pastor Gabe. Today I wanted to talk about just how blessed we are when often we don't understand it, and how sometimes I think we make it more difficult on ourselves to respond in prayer. Because the truth is sometimes God does and sometimes God doesn't. But we should be able to say, "Blessed be the name of the Lord," anyway. And I know that can sound like easy Christianese speak, but at the end of the day, it might actually be all we have. Sometimes when we are counting on God to come through, sometimes He doesn't. And I think it reminds me of the determination of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego from Daniel 3 when they're stood before King Nebuchadnezzar. And even though God does ultimately deliver them out of the flame, they had a mindset to speak faith. This is Daniel 3:16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the fiery furnace, and He will deliver us out of your hand. O king, but if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up." See, they acknowledge that God is able to deliver them, and despite the outcome, they will still serve Him. Right? Even if they go down in flames, they are determined to serve God, and certainly not to worship another. I think this is similar to what Job says when he has his whole world taken from him. He says, "The Lord is given and the Lord is taken away, and blessed be the name of the Lord." Job had lost everything, and he decided to worship. Throughout the course of that whole book, while reflecting on the matter, Job does begin to want answers, though. Who wouldn't? However, God doesn't give them. And I think this is when the fight of faith begins. It always seems to involve a why or a win. And I believe this is what Paul gets at when he says that we are to fight the good fight of faith. He's referring specifically to defending good doctrine in that instance, but good doctrine usually comes into play or is necessary, right? If it was easy, I wouldn't need a doctrine to fall back on. It's easier to come up with a simpler, more forgiving doctrine, because that usually, it demands less of me, and it usually gives more promises. And so those aren't the difficult passages for us to hold on to. But it is harder to keep believing and trusting when everything seems to have failed, when everything is falling down around us. And this is when we start to ask why, or how, or when. And these are the situations when it is called for a fight. A fight of faith is important. Later in that same book, Paul writes in chapter 6 to Timothy, telling him to guard that which was entrusted to him. Fighting for and guarding his faith. Sometimes that's very necessary. Fighting implies opposition. Guarding implies an attack to be fended off. And it's easy to talk about faith, but it is difficult when we need to contend for it. I've been thinking about a line from one of Johnny Cash's songs, Unchained. The refrain is, "It's so hard to see the rainbow through glasses dark as these. Maybe I'll be able from now on my knees." Talking about prayer. Fighting the fight of faith always begins on our knees. It's a posture of humility. Prayer is always a posture of humility. It's reaching out to God who is above to give us the help down below. And see, Job started there. He covered himself in dust and ashes, and he mourned. He was humbled. But over time, as he started looking at his circumstances, discussing it over with his friends, as we often do, ruminating it in his mind, he began to desire an answer. A why. I think he came up off his knees a little bit. He stood up. He was no longer in that position of humility. He left the posture of humbly seeking, and he went a different route. I think for probably many of us, when we're going through a struggle, we found ourselves standing up a little bit. We leave the posture of prayer, of humility, and we try to go our own way, figure out a different answer. Yeah, for me, just remembering these words help me a little bit, especially lower my stiff neck. We all get prideful. We all demand answers, and we all go through it. But Paul knew it, humility. Job was reminded of it, and of course Johnny Cash here sang it. And I need that reminder too. We all do. I think returning to our knees in prayer and humility before God is the best way to say blessed be. Because when we can't say blessed be, then we demand answers. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Something that reminds me, humility before God in times of sorrow. Thanks. So again, there will be more. Stick with us. More is coming. Thanks a lot.